If you've ever asked yourself, how do I get more new patients in the door? Then today's podcast is for you. And let's be honest, if you're listening to this, then you've probably thought that. And you've probably run through the endless options on how to actually get more new patients. Do you do more local marketing? Do you host more workshops? Do you beg other business owners to send people your way? Those work, sure. But what if I told you there's a hidden treasure of leads that are waiting to become patients that you just haven't unlocked yet? This is the easiest way and the easiest fix to get more new discovery calls and evaluations, but most clinics overlook it. And this is your website. And this is exactly what I'm going to jump into today. I'm going to give you the 5 things that you can change today about your website to convert more of those website visitors into actual leads. Because converting website traffic into leads is honestly, it's one of the easiest ways to convert interested people into becoming new patients. We overlook website traffic as a way to generate leads. Most clinic owners that I talk to say something like, I don't get any website traffic, or people rarely find me online, or I don't really care about my website because no one ever finds me there. And that might be true. But even if you're only getting 200 website visits a month, if you can go from converting 1% of that traffic, so that would be 2 people, to 10% of that traffic, which is 20 people, that's an absolute game changer. Would you like to have 18 more discovery calls this month? Like that's insane. That can totally change your business. That's a whole staff PT schedule. And that's exactly what I'm going to teach you today. And if you want a free website wireframe and a Canva template on how to set all of these things up, you can head on over to the link in the description of the podcast, and there's a free download in there on how to set all this stuff up for you. There's a couple other free website trainings as well. Recently, I've been getting so many questions about websites, and a lot of my content is going to be going out about how to revamp and how to set up a really good website. You can head on over to the YouTube channel as well. I'm going to be posting a bunch of stuff about website there, and you can start to chip away at these things on your own. But for now, let's dive into the 5 things that you can do today in order to make your website convert at a higher rate. So the first thing that we always look at is going to be the heading of your website. And this is the first thing that we're going to change. And when I say heading here, I don't mean heading in the literal term of like the H1 of the top of your website. The heading, what I look at this is really like above the fold is what we call it. So somebody lands on your website before they scroll at all. What are they seeing here? So that's going to include the nav bar, the heading text, the subtext, and that's the first thing that you need to look at on your website. And this is something, again, like there's some very easy wins in here. And if you can change this and if you can fix this to make it convert better, all of a sudden you're going to be seeing 4 or 5 more leads coming in the door. The job of your header is to get the customers to read the rest of your website. So it should be good enough to earn a scroll from people, to get them to pique their curiosity and get them to continue scrolling down your website. The way that you do this is by writing copy that passes what we call the grunt test. Now, you may have heard this grunt test as called the 3rd grade reading test or something along those lines, but I call it the grunt test. And really what this is just 3 questions that you're answering these 3 questions on the heading of your website with clear and concise statements. So these 3 questions, what they are is, number 1 is, what do you offer? Number 2 is, what will make the customer's life better? How will your service actually make their life better and solve what they're looking for? And then the 3rd question is, how does somebody get it? What is the next steps to move forward in order to get your service? Now, these seem pretty simple, right? But you'll be surprised. And, I urge you to go to your own website as you're listening to this and do this test with your own website and just see, does the header of your website answer these 3 questions? So for example, question number 1 is, what do you offer? When you land on your homepage and before you scroll at all, does it say anything about physical therapy there? You'd be shocked at the number of patch demo calls that I have with people where I review their websites and they don't pass this very first question here. They say within the heading, they're saying something about, reaching your summit or overcoming your obstacles or something witty and cheeky, and it sounds awesome, but it doesn't say anything about physical therapy. And I think we overlook the fact that most people don't know what physical therapy is. And if they are looking for physical therapy and they go to a website that doesn't say say anything about physical therapy, they're going to have no idea what you offer and if you are a physical therapy clinic. So we need to answer that question very clearly. Where I like to put this in the above the fold in the header is going to be not in the main like heading text, the big bold text that you have on there. I think that's going to answer number 2 for us of how will it make the customer's life better. But right in that little subtext underneath it, you should have a very clear and concise statement that says something along the lines of cash-based physical therapy for active adults in Boston, performance physical therapy for soccer players in San Antonio, pelvic health PT for expecting moms in Houston or whatever it might be. You should very clearly say, what type of physical therapy you do, who it's for, and that's going to very clearly answer the what do you offer questions. The second question is going to be, how will it make the customer's life better? So again, I think this is where you can flex that creative copy muscle a little bit, and you can get a little cheeky with your heading. And this is where I like to use that actual big heading text here. And you can say something along the lines of, get back to your active lifestyle and sport, or get back to all of the things that you love. I know on Ripple's website, my old clinic, it says, keep doing what you love no matter how hard you push it. That's a very clear and concise statement that attracts their avatar, which are active adults who push it and want to continue pushing it and want a style of physical therapy that fits their needs. That's very clearly saying how it will make their life better. So that's going to be question number 2. And then the third question, again, very simply, this should be answering, how do I get it? What do I need to do next to move forward? Again, this is where I think people overcomplicate it all the time, where this call to action in your header, it should be in the top right corner with a button that stands out. And it also should be in like the bottom middle of your header with another button that very clearly says what you want somebody to do next. And so again, at Ripple and with most clinics that we work with at Patch, we suggest everybody here push people towards a 15-minute phone discovery call. So those buttons that are on there, they very clearly say, book your free phone consult, or book your free 15-minute phone call, or something along those lines. That very clearly tells them like, hey, this is the next step. What you want to avoid here is going to be something along the lines of learn more, or book your appointment today, or something like that, where like learn more is very vague. Or contact us. Those are what I call soft call to actions, and they don't really tell somebody what it is that they need to do in order to move forward. Book an appointment is a hard call to action. That sounds awesome, but if you don't send somebody to a place where they can actually book that appointment, then you're going to lose them there. Because if somebody clicks book an appointment and they have to fill out a form and they're not actually able to book something, then they're not doing what you're telling them to do. So the odds of them converting go down. And again, this is why we don't send people directly to your EMR, and we send people to a discovery call calendar, because that's very easy to set up inside of HubSpot. It is giving the person what they're looking for, and it converts at the highest rate. So this is going to be your header. Again, the most important part of your website. You earn the scroll and people spending more than 5 seconds on your website with the above the fold and the heading. This is the number one thing that you can fix on your website today to convert, 3, 4, 5% more of your website traffic into leads that are booking discovery calls or inquiring about your services. The second thing that you can change on your website and what you need to be looking at your website is making sure that you have sections in your website that talk about the stakes. So what is at stake if the customer doesn't buy your product? What happens if they don't move forward with physical therapy and they just continue to be in back pain forever? Their knee is hurting and they're going to continue to run. This is where you figure out what your avatar is and what is their aspirational identity. Do they want to be running marathons? Do they just want to be playing with kids in the backyard? Do they want to be playing 36 holes of golf this weekend? You figure out what is that end goal, and what happens if they don't fix the pain that they're in or the problems that they're dealing with, and you lean into that emotional, and you really tap into that emotional side of somebody. And if you're able to do that, the odds of them converting go way up, because what you're doing is you're putting yourself in in their shoes. And what we want people to do, and when they go to your website, we want them to read that website and be like, damn, this person, they are talking directly to me. And if you tap into somebody's emotional why, that's exactly how you're going to do this. So to figure out the stakes of your website, there's 3 questions that you can ask yourself, answer them, and then put that copy on your website. So the first one is going to be, what is the problem your customers are facing? So very simply, what are they facing? Maybe they're injured and they can't do the activities they love. That's a very simple one, right? How is this problem making them feel? I think this is probably the most important part here, tapping into that exact feeling. Are they depressed because they're in pain? Are they sad because they can't run anymore? Are they angry because they spent $3,000 on the ski trip this weekend and they're not able to do it anymore? Are they embarrassed because the Sunday morning yoga class they can't go to with their friends? What is that feeling that they're having? And if you can clearly state that and you can nail that, man, like talk about copy that is going to get people to convert. And then the third question is, why is this just not true? So again, like I think a lot of people think because they don't understand, maybe their experience with physical therapy is that like old school insurance-based 15-minute appointments, and it just has never worked for them. And that's what their assumption is right now. So if we can tell them why that's just not true, we'll be able to get them to take that next step and move forward. So maybe it's something like injuries happen, but that shouldn't define your activity, or physical therapy is not what it was 10 years ago. This is what it looks like now. And if you answer those 3 questions and you put it all together, that's going to be your stakes section. And, I love what Ripple does with their stakes section on their website. Basically what the heading of this section says is, injuries strip you of your identity. It's a very bold statement. It's very clear. And I think somebody's going to read that. And if they're going through an identity crisis right now because they can't golf this weekend and golf is what they look forward to doing, or running is what they look forward to doing, or whatever it might be, that's a really powerful statement. And the subtext underneath it, it says, when you get injured, you're not only in pain, but you can't do the things that you love. This weekend's ski trip is a bust. Going to the gym will be a waste. And your daily walk with a dog is now the last thing that you want to do. You lose your identity when you get hurt. The worst part, the doctor is going to suggest easing off or cutting back or retiring altogether. And we know that's just not an option. That's where performance physical therapy at Ripple can help. So we're very clearly answering all 3 of those questions, right? Of, what is the problem they're facing? This weekend ski trip's a bust. Going to the gym's a waste. You can't even walk the dog. How is that making them feel? We're losing our identity. That's how I'm feeling about this. And then why is that just not true? We kind of lean into, going to the doctor. They're going to just tell you hey, just like stop squatting, or don't deadlift, or just don't run 20 miles. And we know that that's not an option. That is not true. That's where performance physical therapy at Ripple comes in. So they do a really good job with that very, very powerful section. So for you guys, again, you need to take something like that and figure out, what are the problems that your demographic is dealing with? Why is that just not true? And how do you create copy around that in order to get somebody to move forward and take that next step? So the stakes section, something that I don't know very many clinics that actually have this section on their website. But if you can start to trickle this in different parts of your website, and you can have a really positive section where we're talking about, getting back to doing the things you love, but then you couple that with a stakes section of hey, here's what happens if you don't do things and you don't, come in for physical therapy. You're not going to be able to get back to the things you love. And being able to alternate the positive and the negative and adding in those negatives and really tapping into people's emotional state, it's just a really, really easy way to get people to convert. The third section that you can look at here is making sure that you're clearly defining what your 3-step process is. So we talked about very clearly saying in the heading of, what is people's next step? I think you also need to have somewhere on your website, and probably on each page of your website is, what is the 3-step process, and what does it look like for people to move forward with you. And I know like a lot of clinics out there, they've like named their package. For example, like at Ripple, we have our 3-step process. We call it Revive, Rejuvenate, Expand, which is very cheeky, very cool. The branding's awesome. We're able to create some awesome like posters around it, name it. It all makes sense for people internally at Ripple who kind of get it. But if I have Revive, Rejuvenate, Expand on the website, people are going to have no fucking idea what I'm talking about. They need like actually actionable steps of what they need to do and what does it look like when somebody works with you. So I think like what this 3-step process should be something along the lines of, again, like, what is step number 1 of moving forward? We want people to book that 15-minute phone consultation. So that's our step number 1 is, book your free phone consult. Then the next step with that, right, is they book the call. They should be scheduling an evaluation. So step number 2, come in for that evaluation, 60-minute one-on-one, create the game plan, et cetera, et cetera. And then that step number 3 is going to be executing on that plan. So purchasing a package, moving forward in a plan of care. That's a very clear 3-step process. And again, most people just don't know what physical therapy is, especially physical therapy with us, where we are a little bit more on the progressive side of things and it's non-traditional. You need to very clearly state, like, what does this look like if you are to work with us? I think that's a really awesome video that you can create as well of like, what does the 3 months look like working with XYZ physical therapy? If you can clearly define that and show, why it's different and why working with you is going to be much better than going the traditional route, you're going to be able to get people to move forward and at least take that first step. The 4th thing that you're going to want on your website, and you're going to want to make sure that you're either adding or changing up, is going to be the value prop section of your website. So what benefits will your customers experience when they buy your product or service? And really what we're wanting to do here is just clearly outline and state all of the things that you do outside of physical therapy. And again, this is a really good exercise. And if you guys haven't listened to the podcast or watched a YouTube video where I talk about value stacking your packages, I highly suggest you go back and you check out those videos and you listen to that podcast, because what we do there is there's an exercise where you basically just list out all of the things that you do, and that's included with your physical therapy service, because it's much more than that one-on-one 60-minute session. You're probably, people have 24/7 access to you to email or text or ask any sort of questions that they might have. Maybe you're using an app like TrueCoach where you can send them online programming and you're sending them running workouts, golfing workouts, cool down workouts, your home exercise program, strength training day that's going to help them avoid their injuries. Maybe you have like some value with local partners in the area and you have some partnerships with them where if they come in and they work with you, they also get, a free week at this gym, or they get a cryo session across the street, or a DEXA scan upstairs, whatever it might be, and whatever all the other things that people get while working with you. It can be as simple as just like, hey, we offer BFR and we offer dry needling and we offer instrument assisted soft tissue work. All of those things that are non-traditional at the classic PT, make sure you're adding those things in, because I think clinic owners just assume that people know that we do all this other stuff. They don't actually market it. I mean, if you're not marketing, people are going to have no idea that you actually do it. And therefore, when you ask them to pay $200, they're going to be like, why the hell would I do that? So that's why adding this value prop on your website is so important in a section that you can't skip. And I think just a lot of clinics don't even have it on there. The 5th thing that you can do on your website, this is going to be along the lines of revamping the copy on your website, is we want to make sure that the customer is the hero and you're the guide in their story. So what I mean by that is your website should be talking directly to the person that is looking for physical therapy. So the person that landed on their website, they should read through all of the copy on your website and it should be talking about them and it should be talking about you. Too often I go to a clinic's website and it's all about the dry needling they do and the BFR and all the continuing education courses and the education that they have and blah, blah, blah. And to be honest with you, like, that's awesome. That's great. But it does not help your conversion metrics as much as you think it does. I think having a little bit of authority on your website where you can say like, hey, we've helped thousands of people in the Boston area, or all of our physical therapists are dry needling certified, or whatever it might be. But that cannot be the focus of your website. Your website needs to show the reader that they are the hero in this story, and we're just here to help guide them to the aspirational identity or the solution to their problem that they're looking for. What you want to do is you want to clearly showcase where they are now and highlight that. Again, that's where we're talking about like the stakes section of, what problems are they dealing with now? What happens if they don't move forward? And then, how does our service help guide them to where they want to be? We do this by showing empathy. We do this by, very clearly showing them a solution to their problem. And again, I think this is just in general, reading through your website, make sure that the copy that you have on there is talking about the reader and not about you, and how you solve their problem and not how awesome you are. Again, at the end of the day, you need to show a little bit of authority, sure, but the customer is the hero in this story and you are just the guide. So again, the 5 things that you can go to your website right now and you can fix. The first thing is going to be the heading and the above the fold. Second thing is adding a stakes section to your website. Third thing is going to be making sure you have a clear and concise 3-step process of what people need to do in order to move forward and what it looks like working with you. The fourth thing is adding a value prop section. And then number 5 is making sure the copy on your website is talking about how the customer is the hero and you are simply the guide to help them get to where they want to be. So we got 3 bonuses here as well. I wanted to do just 5, but there are other just very quick things that these are not must-haves, but that are nice to haves on your website. So I'm going to quickly run through these. Bonus number 1 is what we call an SEO junk drawer. Now SEO's changed a lot in the last year. It's certainly changed a lot in the last 10 years where, SEO used to just be able to have white text that blended in with your background that said Boston Physical Therapy 1,000 times, and Google would put you at the top of page 1. That is no longer the case, unfortunately. But you still need to have keywords on your website, but you need to make sure that it makes sense. And as it's woven into your copy on your website, it's not very clearly just kind of stuffed there. So a nice way to get around that is what we call an SEO junk drawer. So at the bottom of your page, you can have a little bit longer paragraph, because this is going to be only really for people that are super interested in your service, and they're going to scroll all the way down and they're going to see this bigger paragraph, and they're probably going to be a little bit more apt to actually sit there and read it because they're showing a lot of interest in your website. And what this junk drawer is basically just a long paragraph where you're telling a story about who you are and what you do and how you help people, and that's where you can stuff in Boston Physical Therapy or Pelvic Health PT or the Best Physical Therapy Clinic or Sports Physical Therapy or Dry Needling Boston or whatever it might be. And you can add all of those things in, and it's not going to feel weird. It's not going to feel forced, and you're not just kind of stuffing it in these smaller sections. That should be more attention grabbing and, drawing people in, because if you have these big headings that say Boston Physical Therapy and each heading has that in there, it's going to look weird. And people are going to know what you're trying to do. When I go to a website, I can very clearly see which ones are working with an SEO company and they don't really care about the user experience on the website. They care more about SEO. I certainly care about SEO, but I want to make sure first and foremost, the user experience on the website is as good as it possibly can be. So I think that's the most important part. So this SEO junk drawer is, really going to do that. Bonus number 2 is going to be social proof. I think a lot of clinics do a really good job with this, but social proof is becoming more and more of one of the most important things that you can have on your website. This is video testimonials that you should be gathering from people. Do you have a Google review widget that are automatically adding new Google reviews to your website? We build websites and we use ElfSite for this. This is a really nice plugin. Looks really good, looks really clean. This is something where you can't use the free version of this because that doesn't look good and people know when you're using the free version of stuff. It's, you're a business owner, you're running a clinic, you need to pay the $7.99 a month for the next level up to get this clear branded out Google review bot that's being pulled over. But also there's really easy ways to just like add in like the little clips of 5-star reviews just underneath the header, or you should be mixing in the social proof as much as possible through your website, because if somebody can read a really good header, get social proof, have a stakes section, have a value prop, like that's a really nice flow, and it's really going to engage the reader and want to make them move forward. Because what social proof does is it takes somebody and it takes a reader and it puts them in the shoes of the person that left the review. So maybe they're dealing with back pain, and if they read a review about somebody's life who's changed that had back pain, the odds of them moving forward are huge. Like that's really powerful stuff there, and you need to make sure that is not just in one spot at the bottom of your website, but sprinkled in throughout. And then the third thing, probably the most important thing, is going to be clear call to actions. With call to actions here, right? The one thing that I always tell people is that your call to action needs to make sense. It needs to be what the actual next step is. So I talked about this in the heading as well. Whereas if you have a call to action that says book your appointment today, but it doesn't take them to a place where they can book an appointment, that's not what you want them to do. Same thing if it's book your free phone consultation and they have to fill out a form and then they can't book that call. It just needs to be really clear on what that next step is. And when they click that button and that button says something that they're supposed to do, that next page should give them the option to do that thing. That's a really clear call to action. And, call to actions, they're important because at the end of the day, we want our website to convert. And if it's not converting, then you might be thinking that you're just not getting any website traffic or that people just don't go to your website. But I'm here to tell you that's not true. I do a lot of SEO audits for a lot of clinics every single week. And, people are getting 500, 600, 700 website visits a month. They're converting 0% of that traffic into potential leads. So if you can go from 0% to, again, 5%, 10% is what the good clinics do that we see inside of Patch. All of a sudden, you have 6, 7, 8 new evaluations in the door every single month. That can literally change your business. And that's just by, that's not by spending $1 on advertising, spending $1 on SEO work. That can also increase that. That can take you from the 500, 600 website visits to 12, 1,500 website visits. And if you, convert at the same rate, now all of a sudden we're cooking and we're growing really, really quickly. So if you want to grow and you want to scale and you want to create a predictable clinic with new patients, your website has to be dialed in. So again, head over to the link in the description to grab your free copy on how to wireframe your own website. Check out our YouTube channel. There's tons of videos on how to revamp your website's wireframe and to just get it to convert better. Make sure you subscribe to the channel there to stay up to date. I'm going to be posting a bunch of website content in the upcoming weeks, month, and make sure, you guys subscribe to the pod.